The sky was burning. Explosions flashed like lightning across the battlefield, lighting up the clouds of smoke and ash. Blaster fires zipped past, bodies some running, some already cold. The ground shook beneath every step. On the western ridge, a lone human soldier took cover behind broken steel. His name was Carter. Breathing hard, he checked his weapon. One power cell left, his armor was cracked at the shoulder, his side bleeding, but he was still standing. He wasn't ready to die, not yet. A low roar echoed through the smoke. From the shadows emerged something tall, armored in dark bone and silver chains. A warrior woman from the Terracon clans. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with purple-gray skin glowing faintly under the red sky. Her long black hair was braided with teeth, some not human. In her hand she held a curved blade with glowing runes. Her name was Kelthera, and she was feared even among her own. She spotted Carter and charged. He barely had time to stand. Her blade came fast, but he blocked it with his rifle. She struck again, slicing across his face. He cried out and fell backward, blood running down his cheek, and then it happened. One drop of his blood flew through the air, striking the surface of her sacred blade. Kelthara froze. Her eyes went wide, her breath caught in her throat. Stared at the blade, then at Carter. Her hands trembled. She dropped to her knees in front of him, her head lowered. The blade touched the ground. Carter, still bleeding and stunned, tried to lift himself. What was she doing? He looked around, no one else? Just the two of them in the chaos. Kelthera spoke, her voice deep and steady, though her eyes held panic. The words were not in English, but something ancient and heavy with meaning. She reached up, pressed her own palm to the wound on his face, and whispered something again. Carter pulled back. "I don't know what you're saying," he muttered, holding his side. "But I'm not your enemy anymore, all right? Just go." She didn't move. Instead, she stood up slowly, turned, and faced the battlefield. She raised her blade and threw it to the dirt. Carter stared in disbelief. The feared warrior had just surrendered, or something else. Suddenly, his squad appeared from the trees behind him, guns raised. "Carter," one of them shouted. "You all right?" "Who is that? What's she doing?" I don't know," he said, eyes still locked on Kelthera. "She just stopped. She cut me and then everything changed." Kelthera didn't resist when the soldiers surrounded her. She stood, tall, silent, watching Carter with unreadable eyes. When one soldier tried to bind her hands, she didn't flinch. But when another pushed Carter aside roughly, she stepped forward quickly. Her growl was low but warning. No one touched him. That night, they brought her back to camp, under heavy watch. Carter was treated for his wounds, sitting in the med bay when the squad leader walked in. "You're lucky she didn't kill you," he said. "Reports say she's one of their elite, bloodbound or something." Carter frowned.
Yes.
"That's supposed to mean? No clue?" "But rumor is, their blades are cursed or sacred, depends who you ask. If someone bleeds on one, it triggers a bond, a life oath. That warrior might be your bodyguard now, or your shadow." Carter laughed once, then winced. "You're joking. She hasn't spoken since we took her in. Hasn't eaten either. Just sits near your tent and stares at the stars, like she's waiting." That night, Carter couldn't sleep. He walked out quietly, toward the edge of the camp. Kelthara was sitting by the fire, her back straight, eyes alert. As he approached, she rose to her feet slowly. He looked into her eyes. There was no hate, no fear, just something deep-hand, strange. "I'm not your master," he said softly. She tilted her head, then raised her hand and pointed to the scar on his face. Then she touched the blade strapped across her back. Carter swallowed. "What happens now?" Kelthera stepped back, then knelt again. A quiet vow escaped her lips. She bowed her head and whispered just one word. "Yours." The sun had not yet risen. Morning light crept slowly across the broken land, painting the camp in a soft gray. The fires from last night's battle still smoldered. Carter stood outside his tent, watching Kythera sit silently on a flat stone. Her posture perfect, her gaze fixed on nothing. She had not slept. She had not moved from that spot all night. Every guard who passed her slowed down confused. Some whispered, some stared. No one dared come close. Carter took a deep breath and walked toward her. The crunch of his boots on gravel made her shift slightly. It's just enough to show she was aware but not threatened. He stood a few feet away. "You're free, he said, voice soft. "You could run, no one would stop you." She didn't answer. Instead, she reached up and touched her forehead with 2 fingers, then placed them against the scar on his cheek. It was a slow, deliberate motion, one filled with meaning he didn't understand. Carter stepped back. "Look, I didn't ask for this. I don't even know what this is." Still no reply. Frustrated, Carter turned to leave, but then she stood. In one fluid motion, she removed the blade from her back, knelt down, and placed it before him. The same blade that had slashed his face. Her fingers hovered above the hilt, like she was waiting for permission to touch it. Again, Carter stared at the weapon, then at her. "This means something to you," he whispered. She nodded once. Carter sat on a crate near her, still weak from the wound. He pointed to himself. "Carter," he said, then pointed to her. She hesitated, then spoke for the first time in his language, Kale. "Thera." Her voice was calm, rich, and deep like thunder in the distance. The way she said her own name was almost like a chant. Carter smiled faintly. "Okay, Kale Thera, you're not my prisoner. I don't want a servant. I just want to survive this damn war." She tilted her head. Puzzled, Carter pointed to the blade. "What happens if I break that?" Kelthera's face went cold. Reached up, dragged a finger across her own neckband, then pointed to herself. Death. If the blade was broken, she would die. Carter blinked. "You'd rather die than break your oath." She nodded. Before he could respond, a shadow moved near. The camp entrance. A soldier approached quickly. "Carter, the commander wants you." Now, he stood, nodding to Kythera. She followed without a word, like a shadow at his back. Inside the command tent, the air was tense. The commander looked up with tired eyes. "She still won't speak to anyone else?" "No," Carter replied. "But she understands." "I think she's not talking by choice." The commander crossed his arms. "We've had reports. People are looking for her. They've branded her a traitor, bloodbound to a human. They see it as weakness." Carter shook his head. "She saved me. She could have killed me. Instead, she protects me like a guard dog." "She's not a dog," the commander replied sharply. "She's a weapon, and weapons belong in cages." Carter clenched his jaw. Outside, Kythera stood quietly, but her sharp hearing caught every word. Her hands tightened into fists. Later, as Carter returned to his tent, he found her missing. He panicked. He searched near the fire pit, then the medical shed, nothing. Finally, near the edge of camp, he spotted her kneeling alone, her blade drawn across her lap. Her eyes were closed, and her lips moved silently like in prayer. "Hey," Carter said gently. "Don't let them get to you." She opened her eyes slowly. He sat next to her. "I don't know your world. I don't know your laws. But if staying here puts you in danger," Kythera cut him off with a single gesture. She took her blade, turned it sideways, and pressed the flat side to his chest. Then, without looking up, she said in clear, slow English, "Where you go, I go." Carter looked at her face, calm but unshakable. He didn't know what to say. A part of him wanted to tell her to leave, to save herself, to find freedom somewhere else, but deep down he felt it. This wasn't about war anymore. It wasn't about duty. It was about something older, something deeper, not control, not submission, something that neither of them had a word for yet. But it had begun the moment his blood touched her blade. The cold wind howled through the cliffs beyond the camp. Carter sat by the edge of a steep ridge, watching the alien sky turn from orange to black. Stars blinked through the darkness, brighter than he had ever seen on Earth. Kythera stood. Behind him, silent as always, her eyes scanning the horizon like a living shield. But tonight, Carter had questions he could no longer keep inside. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Why not walk away? No one's stopping you." Calthera didn't answer right away. Instead, she unsheathed her curved blade and sat beside him. Slowly, she placed the weapon across her knees, both hands resting on it. "I was born to serve a blade," she said softly. Carter turned to her, surprised she spoke first. "My people," she continued, "believe the blade is a soul. It chooses who lives, who dies. A warrior's honor is not in battle, but in the blood it drinks." She looked at him. "When your blood touched it, the blade changed. It accepted you." Carter frowned. "And that means you have to serve me?" "No," she said. "It means I belong to you. By law, by spirit, by death." He shook his head. "That's insane." "To you," she replied. "To us, it is sacred." She looked down at the blade again, tracing one glowing rune with her finger. This blade was passed. From my mother to me, her blood touched it. So did my grandmother's. Each generation binds their honor to it. I was the first to lose it to an outsider. Carter sat in silence. He couldn't imagine that kind of legacy born with a weapon. Bonded by blood, ruled by rules no one questioned. "I don't want a slave," he said finally. Calthera S. jaw tightened. "I am not a slave. I am a vow." "But I didn't make you vow anything." "The blade did." Carter rubbed his face in frustration. "How do we undo it?" Calthera didn't move. "You can't," she said. "The bond ends only when one of us dies, or when the blade is shattered." She looked him in the eye. "If it breaks, I die." Carter stared at the weapon, curved, ancient, glowing like it had a heartbeat. "What if I refuse your protection? Walk into battle without you?" "I would follow anyway," she said. "Your death is mine. If you fall, I fall." Looked away, anger rising in his chest. "Do your people know?" "Yes," she said. "They are coming." Carter's breath caught. "Coming for you." Calthera nodded. "I broke the chain of blood. That is a betrayal. They'll kill you. If I resist, yes. If I surrender, they will take my blade. Melt it. Burn my name from memory. I will never speak again." Carter stood up quickly. "Then we run." Athara didn't move. "You would run for me?" "Yes," he said without thinking. "Because this isn't fair. Because you saved me. Because I don't want to see you hurt." Calthera blinked once. "You were strange, human." Carter half smiled. "You're not the first to say that." Suddenly, a flare lit the sky, red and loud. Warning, the camp was under watch. Carter rushed back down the slope, Calthera right behind him. At the gate, the guards shouted as shadows moved beyond the trees. Figures tall, armored, silent stood. Just outside the perimeter, Tary can hunters. They didn't speak. They simply waited. "They don't want war," said Calthera. "They want me." Carter stepped forward. "Well, they can't have you." She pulled him back. "If you fight them, more will come." "Then what do we do?" Calthera looked at him, truly looked at him, and her voice dropped. "We leave tonight." Astrous night had fully swallowed the camp. The stars above blinked cold and distant. Below, tension gripped every soldier like a blade against the throat. Shadows moved beyond the fences tall, armored shapes that did not speak, did not blink, did not leave. The Terracon hunters were waiting. Carter stood inside the command tent, pacing in frustration. Calthera stood near the entrance, still and calm. But her grip on the blade was tighter than before. "They want her," said the commander. "And if we don't hand her over, they might storm the whole camp." Carter shook his head. "Not a prisoner? She saved my life. She fought beside us." "She's not one of us," the commander replied. "They won't stop." Calthera stepped forward. "I will go," she said. "No," Carter snapped. "You're not going anywhere." Turn to him. "They will not stop until blood is spilled." "Then let it be theirs," he growled. That night, They planned to leave. Not with permission, not with guards, just the two of them. Slipping into the dark while everyone else held the line. Calthera packed only what she needed: her blade, her armor, and a small glowing stone she wore around her neck. Carter carried a stolen rifle and a satchel of medkits. His side still ached, but the fire in his chest burned brighter than the pain. At midnight, they moved. They slipped past the east fence, crawled under the wires, and disappeared into the forest. Calthera led the way, every step silent, every turn precise. Her people had trained her to track others. Now she used that skill to vanish, but they were not alone. An hour into their escape, a sharp whistle echoed across the trees. Carter stopped. Calthera spun, blade drawn. Red eyes blinked. In the dark, more hunters, at least 6. Show to her, pushed Carter behind a stone wall. "Stay here," she whispered. "What are you doing, ending this?" Before he could stop her, she stepped into the open. The Terracon warriors formed a half-circle. Around her, their armor shimmered, their weapons ready, but no one attacked. Instead, the tallest stepped forward and unhooked his helmet. His face was scarred. Older, familiar. "Calthera," he said coldly. "You have shamed your blood." She didn't blink. "I followed the blade. It was meant for our kind. It's not soft flesh." He bled. It bonded. "I obey. You kneel to a human. I kneel to the vow." The warrior raised his staff, "Then die with it." Carter couldn't watch. Broke from cover, raised his rifle, and fired. One Tarikan dropped, the others turned, eyes wide. Calthera shouted, lunging forward. Her blade danced in the moonlight, slicing through armor and air. Carter ducked behind trees, firing in short bursts. They moved as one hunter and human, two bodies, one purpose, but there were too many. One hunter struck Calthera in the side. She stumbled. Another raised his blade high, ready to finish her. Carter screamed her name, ran forward. He tackled the attacker, slamming his shoulder into the warrior's chest. The blade dropped. Calthera rose, caught it midair, and drove it into her enemy's chest. Silence returned. Only two hunters remained. They looked at each other, then at Carter and Calthera. Then they turned and vanished into the trees. Calthera dropped to one knee. Blood trickled from her side. Carter caught her before she collapsed. "Don't you dare die," he whispered. She looked up, pain in her eyes. "I told you to stay back and let you fight alone," he said. "Never." Smiled just barely. "I've never seen a human fight like that. You've never met one like me." He pressed a med patch to her wound, then tore his jacket and wrapped her tightly above them. The wind howled again, but this time it sounded different, like respect. They didn't speak as they moved again, deeper into the night. The fire of battle still fresh in their blood, but one truth now stood between them. She was no longer protecting him alone. They were protecting each other. The forest was darker than night. Every tree twisted like a claw. Every shadow whispered like a ghost. The ground was wet and cold, the air heavy with mist. Carter's boots slipped on roots and mud, but he didn't stop. Calthera leaned on his shoulder, blood still warm under his hand. But her grip on her blade had not loosened. They had escaped the ambush, but they were still being hunted. The last two Tarikan warriors hadn't vanished into the night by fear. They had gone to report. Carter and Calthera were no longer fugitives. They were now targets. Far from the battlefields and base camps, two of them moved deeper into the untamed lands and charted zones where no soldiers patrolled, where beasts, older than memory, still roamed. Here, even the trees seemed to listen. They found a hollow cave beneath a jagged cliff. Inside, Carter built a small fire using dry moss and heat stones from his kit. The flickering light cast orange shadows on the cave walls. Calthera sat against the wall, her armor half peeled away, her side wrapped in cloth. "You should rest," Carter said, handing her a small protein bar. She took it but didn't eat. "I cannot," she whispered. "You're hurt." "Hurt is not failure," she said. "Rest is weakness. Weakness invites death." Carter looked at her, the firelight catching the tired lines under her eyes. "You're not weak," he said. "You've saved me more than once." She looked at him for a long moment. "You saved me too." He blinked. "You mean in the forest?" "No," she said, voice low. "Before that, you told them I was not a prisoner, and you said no one owns me?" She stared at the flames like they were memories. No one ever said that before. Silence settled between them, not heavy, just full. Carter leaned back, staring at the ceiling of the cave. His side ached. His hands were raw, but his mind was racing. "Do you think they'll stop?" he asked. Kalthara shook her head. "No," she said. "Now I am a mark. My name is stained. Or until the blade is returned." He looked at her. "What happens if we give them the blade?" Kalthara's fingers curled around it instantly. "They will destroy it, melt its soul. My ancestors will be silenced. My story will end." Carter sat up then. "We don't give it to them." She frowned. "That means we keep running." "Then we run." Kalthara's expression softened, just slightly. "You are not like the others," she said. "Most humans would trade me to save themselves." "I'm not most humans," he said. She nodded once. Outside, a howl cut through the woods low. Sharp, not animal. A signal. Carter stood, raising his rifle. "They found us." Kalthara stood too, her movements slower but steady. She strapped the blade across her back and looked him in the eyes. "If they catch me," she said, "do not fight. Run." "No deal," Carter replied. "I am not worth your life." "Wrong." She paused. "Why?" He stepped closer. "Because I don't follow their code. I follow my own. And right now my code says protect the woman who protected me." She blinked once, her face unreadable. Then she touched her forehead, pressed 2 fingers to her chest, and held them out to him, a silent vow in her culture. Before Carter could respond, movement in the trees drew their attention. Shadows again, but this time no armor. No hunters, only glowing eyes. Something else had found them. Kalthara stepped forward, blade drawn. "What is it?" Carter asked. "Not my kind," she said. "Worse." The cave would not protect them now. They had to move again. But this time, they didn't run like fugitives. They moved like warriors with purpose. Together, asterisk. The ruins were quiet. Stone walls broken by time stood in silence under the pale sky. Vines crept over ancient carvings, half lost in dust and ash. In the center of the ruins stood a cracked altar, cold, forgotten, waiting. Kalthara stepped carefully, her boots crunching old bones hidden in the soil. Carter followed close. Behind, watching her eyes scan the shapes on the stone. "This place," she said, "was once sacred." He looked around a temple. She nodded. Double quotes, "where my people brought their first blood-bound warriors to be judged." Carter glanced at the carving stall figures with glowing blades, kneeling to smaller ones. His brow furrowed. "Those are humans." Kalthara's voice dropped. "No, but they looked like you. Long ago, before our histories were rewritten." Stepped forward, brushing dirt from a symbol carved deep into the altar, a blade with fire on one side and a drop of blood on the other. He looked up. "What is this place really?" Kalthara didn't answer, because something behind her moved, a heavy thud, then another, and then silence. She turned slowly. 3 Tarakan warriors stepped into the ruins. No armor this time, just wore paint, bare blades. "Ancient fury, Kalthara," one of them said. "You came to die where traitors are burned." Carter raised his weapon. "No," he said. "She came to survive." The leader laughed. "You cannot stop us," he charged. Carter fired. 1 shot missed. Another struck the stone. But before the warrior reached him, Kalthara stepped in the way. Blade to blade, they clashed with a sound that shook the ruins. 2 more came from the side. Carter turned, but his rifle clicked empty. No bullets, no time. He reached for the only thing near him. the ancient blade Kael'thera had placed on the altar. He didn't think, he just moved. His hand gripped the cold steel, and the world stopped. A pulse shot through his chest like a thunderclap. His vision blurred. The runes on the blade flared to life, burning red and gold. Energy surged through the stone beneath his feet. Dust lifted into the air. Kael'thera stumbled. Looking back in shock, the Terracons froze. Carter stood in the center of the ruins, holding her sacred blade, but now it was glowing in his hands. The blade had accepted him completely. Not just a blood bond. Something deeper. Something forgotten. Kael'thera's eyes widened. No one, no outsider has ever done that. Carter didn't hear her. He turned, moving with strange precision. The blade hummed as he swung, cutting through air with fire trailing behind it. The warrior closest to him barely had time to scream. One strike dropped him. Another tried to retreat. Carter stepped forward and blocked, his arms moving like the blade was guiding him, not the other way around. Kael'thera stood frozen, her own blade lowered. The third Terracon dropped his weapon and fled. Carter stood, alone, the blade still glowing, slowly dimming as he exhaled. Silence returned. Kael'thera approached him slowly. He looked at her, unsure of what just happened. What was that? She didn't answer at first. Then she dropped to one knee. Not out of fear, out of awe. You were not meant to be bloodbound, she whispered. You were meant to carry the blade. Carter stared at the weapon in his hand. I don't want to own anyone you don't, she said. Now, I am free. The words hit him like ice. He stepped back. What do you mean? Kael'thera looked at him, her voice shaking. When the blade accepts someone fully, the old bond breaks. You're not my master now. He lowered the weapon slowly. And what happens to you? I choose, she said. For the first time, I choose. Carter looked into her eyes. She didn't kneel again. She stood, tall, proud, but no longer bound. Fire between them hadn't vanished. It had changed. Now it was something real. The storm was coming. Dark clouds rolled across the alien sky, rumbling low over the mountains as lightning flickered far in the distance. The wind carried ash and cold, brushing across the broken stones of the ruins where Carter and Kael'thera stood side by side. The blade no longer glowed. It now hung across Carter's back. It's quiet but alive, its runes resting in silence. Kael'thera looked out at the valley below. Her arms crossed over her chest, her breath steady. They will come. Again, she said. I know, Carter replied. They will come for you this time. I'm counting on it. She turned her head slightly. You changed everything. He looked at her. No, he said. We did. They had left the temple ruins that morning, crossing scorched ground and ancient trails. Word had already begun to spread, rumors of a human who had awakened the blade, a warrior who fought like no outsider ever had, rumors of a Terracon woman who chose her own path. Camps whispered her name with awe, Kael'therians. A feared enforcer, now a legend, reborn. Carter adjusted the pack on his shoulder and glanced at her once more. You could leave, he said. Start over on another planet, disappear. I could, she answered. But you won't. She shook her head. I followed the blade before. Now I follow what it showed me. He smiled faintly. And what's that? She stepped closer. That loyalty is not a chain. It's a choice. She reached into the pouch at her hip and pulled out a strip of red cloth, faded, stained, once part of her warrior robes. She tore it in half and tied one piece around her wrist. Then, gently, she tied the second around his. No blood this time, she said. Just bond. Carter stared at the fabric, at her hands, at the calm fire in her eyes. You're not afraid anymore, he said. She nodded. I've already died once, when I lost the blade, but now I live by my will. They stood for a moment, wind brushing past them like a breath from the stars. Then a voice crackled through Carter's comm unit. Carter, we need you back at base. Something's wrong. What is it? He asked. 3 ships just entered orbit to recon symbols. No response to hails. Calthera's gaze sharpened. They're not coming for negotiation. Carter looked at her. You still want to fight? She reached for her new blade, shorter than the first, faster. Forged from ruins they had found in the wild. I don't fight because I have to, she said. I fight because someone finally made it worth it. Carter pulled the ancient blade from his back, strapped it to his arm, and nodded. Then let's give them a reason to remember us. They walked together down the slope, back toward the rising smoke of human camps. Toward the war they didn't start but would now finish. Together, no longer bound by magic, no longer chained by code, they were warriors by choice and. The galaxy was about to learn what that meant.